Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Rachel Klein, and I'll be your presenter today. Today, we are looking at generating a donation statement out of the donations module. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I already opened up donations. So one of the pretty frequent calls that we get about printing donation statements is that the customer I'm talking to knows that someone made donations, but for some reason a donation statement for them isn't populating. So they go to search them, they can't find them, or they know they have gifts and they meet all the criteria on step one, but then when you go to print out the statements, they're just not in the list of statements to print. That's a pretty common call that we get. And I want to point out here, before we even get started in donation statements, a really important checkbox. So in donations, if you go into Manage Givers, there's a checkbox over here on the right side. It says Receives Statements. This box is crucial. It has to be checked if you want someone to get a donation statement. By default, when you add someone into the database, it is in fact checked. But you might find between combining people gives with family or uncombining them gives with family that receive statement box has become unchecked. So if you go to print a donation statement and you know somebody should be there and they are just not popping up, this is the first place that I would check to make sure it's checked. So if we come over here, pick Jen, Jen's information is on the right, and lo and behold, Jen's receive statement box is not checked. So even if Jen had giving, even if she gave $10,000 last year, she is not going to print unless this box is checked. So simply come over here, put a check mark in that box, and she's now good to go to get a statement. There's no save or anything on this screen. You can hit refresh givers if you want, but just keep in mind, once this box is checked, it will stay that way. Something else I want to point out, you have two tabs here. You have an individual givers tab and you have a families and groups tab. Jen is not checked gives with family. See, not checked. She gives by herself. So we need to make sure her receive statement box is checked for her on this individual givers tab. But if we come down here to Bill and Donna, they are both checked gives with family. We can easily tell that because they share the same number and their giver number box is blue. And we can see it here with these check marks on the giver number tab. But if we go to the name tab, we can't check receive statement here. It's grayed out. That's because they give together. So we have to find them then on the families and groups tab here. Mr. and Mrs. William Bell. And on here, because they give together, you see the receive statement box is active on this families and groups section. So if they're checked gives with family, go to families and groups, find their family name and make sure it's receive statement. If they give individually, or they give by themselves, they are not checked gives with family, you need to go to the individual givers tab and find their receive statement box here. Okay. For the most part, if you go here and it's grayed out, then you know, okay, they don't give individually, they give with a family. I need to jump over here and then I'm able to check that box, okay? So long story short, if you go to print a donation statement for someone and it's not popping up for them, it's not generating them a statement, this is the first place I would direct you to check on a support call. So check here first, okay? All right, let's get into statements. So you can get to the donation statement section one of two ways. You can go right here in the middle, or you can go up to the top under reports and export and go to donation statement here. Takes you to the same screen, doesn't matter which button you click. But it is going to take you to step one. So step one is always going to be who needs the report. So who needs to be in the report or who needs a report generated for them. Okay. By default, when you come into this screen, it's going to generate a donation statement for only people who have giving within this date range. So if I change absolutely nothing on this screen and I hit next, The only people that are going to be populated down at the bottom are going to be people that gave within the 2024 year. Okay? If that's the criteria that you're interested in, you have literally nothing to change back on step one. Okay? It's also going to include inactive people. So if you have anyone that gave last year, maybe they've passed away in 2024. I say last year, I mean 2024. If you have anyone that gave in 2024 and then left the church, passed away, moved away, transferred their membership, whatever it might be, this inactive is going to be here. It's going to include those people, but only if they gave. Okay, so here's that criteria. So for the date range of 1/1/24 to 12/31/24, only those who gave and regardless of pledging. All right, that's your default criteria. Most people I talk to, that's the criteria they want. They only need those statements for the people that gave. And if that's all you need, check your sort tab and make sure they're going to print out in the order that you want them to. So either number, name, or zip code order, and hit next. Now, if you have specific criteria that you're wanting to add to this, say you're only wanting it for active members or people of a particular status code, all of those things you can then come in here, edit people selection criteria, and you can use membership data here to filter people out. You can only print them for people with a giver number if that's what you want. If you want to print them in particular giver number ranges, you can do that here. If you want to exclude visitors, simple check boxes. And like I said, by default, those inactive people who gave are going to be included. All right, so that's where you pull in any membership criteria you might need, just like a reporting you would do over in the membership side. Down here at the bottom, number 3, this is something I really want to point out. In donations, you are always working in the current period, okay? So once your clock on your computer changes to the first of the year, all of these date pickers here in donations are going to reflect the current year. So it's going to show 1/1/2025 to 12/31/2025 as soon as your computer flips over to the 1st of January. In donations, you're going to be doing a lot of date swapping to jump back to 2024 and then jump back to 2025 because it's always going to default to 2025 once the new year hits. This little minus year button is going to be your best friend in donations, okay? So when you come in the first of the year or the first week of January and you're working to get your donation statements out, you're going to have to click this minus year button, and that's going to quickly take you from 1/1/2025 back to 2024. Okay, so make sure you're paying attention to your date range. When you run donation statements, you need to always check your date range here on this first screen. This is the date range that is set for what's reported on when you go to print your donation statement. Okay, I think I've hammered that enough, but make sure you're verifying your date range is always changed here on the first screen. Now, if you have any specific pledging or giving criteria that you want to enter, you do that right here in this Add Giving Pledging Criteria. This allows you to change what the default query is. So like I said, it's going to be focused on only those who gave within the particular date range. But if you want to look at only those who pledged, or you want to look at only those who pledged and all regardless of giving, or you want to only those people who've met their pledges, and then you want to print the ones who haven't met their pledges separately, you can do all of that right here in this giving pledging query. Again, it's optional. If you're cool with just only those who gave, then you don't need to come in here. But if you do have some different things that you are wanting to put in here for a query, this is where you would do that for giving or pledging. Okay. Accounts tab, that's pretty straightforward. If you only want to include particular giving accounts on the donation statement, you would just move those accounts by double-clicking them or highlighting and hitting the arrow over to the right. So if on your donation statement you only want to report on these 5 accounts, you would just move those 5 to the right. If you want all accounts included on the donation statement, then you don't need to come to the Accounts tab, just leave it as is and all the accounts will be selected. If you find you want to run a donation statement on a particular pledge campaign, you can do that here by selecting the particular pledge campaign in this box. And what that's going to do is it's only going to pull people who pledged to this pledge campaign. Okay. So those are kind of your different options for step one. I don't have a perfect one. Everybody could do something a little bit different, but I wanted to go through all the different options of step one for you to be able to get the statements out for whom you need. Again, I'm going to come back in here. You would need to hit your minus year button to get back to 2024, and then we're just going to hit next. And then step two is going to load. So step two is going to, down at the lower half of the screen, it's going to show me everyone that meets my criteria. And remember, my criteria is anyone who gave last year. By default, everyone here is going to have their print box checked. If you're going to do emailing, here's a column to check whom you want to email. We'll talk about that on Thursday if you want more information about that, but they have to have an email address entered in the database to be able to email them. If you want to add them a personalized note, so a message that only shows on Mr. and Mrs. Bill Bell's family, you could put that note in here, okay? These personalized statement memos do not save. So if you put it in something in here and then you print it, it'll show up on just the Bell's statement, but the next time you come in here, that personalized memo will not be there. So just keep in mind, this is just for individual notes for those people if you want to add something. Same thing if you email, this is where you would put that personalized email note. There's a search box here. If you want to look for someone in particular, you can do that in this search box. Otherwise, you can just scroll through this list and find the individuals that you're needing or not needing. If you find, you know, this person only gave $1, I don't want to include them, you would just come to their line, simply uncheck that print box, and then that would omit that person from your print preview to get your reports. Or alternately, if you find I just need to print a statement for just one person, down here at the bottom, click uncheck print for all and then just check that one person that you're needing the donation statement for. Okay. Up here at the top, we have a bunch of tabs here. First tab on the options tab, statement layout. This is going to be what you want your donation statement to look like. Okay. Windowed envelope is going to be our most popular statement. There's also a windowed envelope that has no tax deductible totals. So again, depending on how you want your information to present when you print it out, you can choose one of these. There's also a tri-fold and then two Canadian options as well. The windowed envelope layout is by far our most popular. And you can do a tri-fold with these and it'll fit perfectly into your standard sized windowed envelope. This allows you to not have to print labels for donation statements. So windowed envelopes, most popular. Down here at the bottom, global memo. This is where you can create a little statement that prints at the bottom of everyone's donation statement. So remember, personalized statement memo is just specific to the person. Global memo is a message for everyone. Okay. If you want to customize this from last year, hit the little piece of paper, or you can add a new one here. And then if you find we need to update one of these, oh yeah, this is from 2011, I definitely need to come in here and update my message here. Or you can type in a new title, a new message, hit add, and it'll pop down here at the bottom of the list, and then you can use that again in the future. Okay. Couple check boxes here. Warn if statement spans more than one page. Do not show pledging information. So if you are not a pledging church, you would want to check that box. Do not show separate tax deductible detail sections. It's on the layout itself. If you take tax deductible or take non-tax deductible donations, it'll separate those two things out if that's something you want to see. Statement designer, we'll talk about that tomorrow. Account summary sort. So this is going to be the order that the accounts are going to print in the donation, in the account summary section. So you can change this order if you would like. Let me show you the preview before we move on. That way you can kind of see what I'm talking about here. All right, so here is an example of a donation statement. Let me get to somebody who's had multiple donations. Here we go. So here's Chris Day. So here's that little windowed part we talked about if you fold it properly. Here's your church information. Giver number if you use statement date range. Remember, this is that date range we put on that first step. That's why it's so important that you put the date range in on step 1. Total given tax deductible or non-tax deductible. Again, if you don't want to see this stuff separated, you're going to go choose that other statement that said no separation for the tax deductible. And then down here at the bottom, this is your first section. This is going to be your detail section. This is going to list every donation that they gave within the date range. Second section is your account summary. This would list all the different giving accounts that they gave to, and then the information if you're a pledging church and giving and all those things. And again, this is completely customizable. We'll talk about that tomorrow if you want to come back for that event. And then down here at the bottom is your monthly and your quarterly totals. Again, if you're not a pledged church, we can get rid of the pledge wording. Keep scrolling down. Here is the IRS approved statement that has to show on all donation statements. And then here is that global memo that we talked about where you can update that information. A lot of times people put in there, you know, thanks for your continuing support, and if you have questions, contact so-and-so, that type of thing. But this bottom half is going to print at the footer of all of your donation statements. Okay. These other tabs, excuse me, so this is if you want to change the date range for which you would like to see giving and pledging on the report. I'll tell you, I have never come in here and changed this. I always do my date range on step 1, so I would not worry about this. Organization information, if you had 2 churches or if you had a preschool you needed to print something for, you could choose a different organization information that prints up at the top. This is that email tab. We're going to talk about that on Thursday. And then this is the relabel fields and individual name options. So if you want to change, excuse me, if you want to change the account summary section and you want to see the campaign name print instead of the account name. So if you want to see General Fund Pledge Campaign 2024 print instead of just General Fund, you could change that to print the campaign name. Again, if you're not a pledging church, it doesn't apply to you. If you want to include people's title, this would be entered from membership. Print first name instead of nickname or include the middle name. This is if people who are entered over in membership specifically. And then over here on the top right, you can look at the default labels. So these default labels that the system uses. And if you want to change what the label is, so change how it appears on the report, you can do that here. Commonly, I see people change the default label of pledged to estimate of giving. So if you want to see the word estimate of giving instead of pledged, you could come in here and adjust how that label shows on the donation statement. Or if you don't like prior giving and you want to say prepaid, you could click right in here and change that to say prepaid if you want. Okay, that is everything. That was a quick tour of donation statements. That's everything I wanted to go over with you guys.